Outcomes, not outputs. Why are great managers shifting towards being outcome driven? So today we're going to talk about what's the difference between outcomes and outputs, and why does this matter? And we're going to leave you with some 4 tips to take away so you can start shifting to managing in an outcome-centric way. So come join us. Welcome, everyone. Those of you that are on live on LinkedIn, welcome, or Facebook or YouTube channel on our Game Changing Work channel. Today, we have our GCW partner, Larry LaSalle from
Good morning.
Scaled OKRs. And of
Good
course, Roxana and the unicorn, the kitty cat and the unicorn.
Yeah.
We couldn't help ourselves. Last year we had to dress up, so we had to do it again.
Yes.
So today is a great topic. I think it's pretty prevalent out there today, where everyone's trying to figure out what do we need to change on how we lead our people.
Mhm.
And so we thought this would be a great conversation today. But I wanted to share a couple of statistics out there that are related to here in 2021 and what they found out about employee engagement. Because, hey, let's be honest, it has everything to do with it, right?
That's
So 51% of employees are disengaged from the workplace.
Yeah, that number has actually gotten worse, and you can see statistics sometimes where they'll refine that number a bit in terms of active disengagement versus just disengagement in general. And when they refine it, and define active disengagement, it means these are folks on the ground actively looking for work, new jobs at work. And that number can hover in that 20% range. That's a high number. So these numbers have been going in the wrong direction, unfortunately, for a while now. And now at the wrong time.
And according to Gallup, these are the highest numbers since 2000. And they've been doing this research. So just to get you a comparison analysis, those of you that are watching, is that, that it's the highest since 2000. But here's a couple of more things. Let's equate that to profitability in organizations. And so here's another part of their Gallup research is that highly engaged workforce increases profitability by 21%.
Well, I don't think we're surprised to see this. And I think, and related to what you were saying, that these are the highest numbers since 2000, we have to think about the fact that also in like the latest couple of years, this is where we started to look more at these numbers when it comes to people feeling engaged and motivated at work. I don't think in the 2000s we were doing such a great job at measuring the level of engagement and motivation. Maybe we were doing less of that. But what I would also add here, of course, it's related to profitability. And there's another statistic that came in from McKinsey that says that 38% of employers think that attrition is due to compensation. And 51% of employees actually say that they leave because they don't feel appreciated in their workplace.
That's right.
So this is what, when you look at this and you think about how might employers want to compensate that level of disengagement, and they compensate it with maybe a higher salary, but that does not translate into productivity because people want to feel appreciated in the workplace. So that's a different problem altogether.
Are you saying we actually have problems that money can't fix? Like money can't address it head on? Like you just can't throw money at it?
Maybe.
I will share with
Yeah.
you. I know that the focus on this is the engagement element, but if you want to do some, if you appreciate numbers and statistics, and you want to dig in even deeper, look at numbers around both alignment of the organization and engagement. High alignment, high engagement, the performance around growth and profitability makes those numbers that we're looking at there from a pure engagement lens really even, though this is even smaller than what you get from high alignment and high engagement both.
Yeah, and that's a
you
really
get
good
into
point.
you get into growth rates of greater than 50% type numbers. So
Now let's equate this to dollars. And I think, a lot of times it's okay, percentage, but what does that really mean on a dollar perspective? And I thought this was quite interesting. There is an engagement institute where they do a lot of research and when it comes to engagement out there. And they came with this findings that employee disengagement costs the U.S. economy $550 billion every year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of coin.
And I think it's a fun number to look at, because I can tell you, think about it like this. When you like, we have had the opportunity to work within organizations and you see, the desperate need for to create space for innovation in these places and to really foster the mind share that they have and get the most out of it, and you can just sense how it's really bogged down right now. And so when you look at a number like this, just in the sense of just from lack of engagement, think about what that number might look like if you think about what this might have translated from an engagement and innovation and what more. The lost opportunity here is almost, I know there's wise people and very intelligent people who could put numbers to complex problems like that, but I can't imagine what we lose, because the remarkable things that we do achieve, if you think about what we can achieve, and yet at the same time, we've got a workforce disengagement number that hovers in that percentage that we're talking about today. It really makes you scratch your head at what more we could accomplish if we could just get the conditions right in organizations.
Now, and just to kind of connect the dots, with Larry, you and I work a lot when it comes to agility and the challenges and that failure rate. And there's a direct correlation to all of this. And Roxana, you work with emerging leaders and leadership to help them actually be better leaders and a lot of things that they're concerned and the challenges that they share with you that they want to do change, they want to do different, but there's constraints in the system of the organization that is stopping them. And there has to be a connection to all of this.
Yeah.
Right? People drive strategy, right?
Yeah.
And people make processes effective. And so you keep implementing all of these things, but if you're not really taking the people side of the equation, there's something missing there.
And also the amount of, like, if you look at these numbers, like you can do an easy calculation. If you work in an organization, I work with a lot of teams right now, and what I see is a lot of disengagement coming from the fact that all of the decision making comes from the top down, and they really don't understand, okay, so where are we actually going and why do we need to go there? Because I see something different from where I stand. So, and they want to do planning. They want to set some goals. They want to have some work done and get some results, but they get stuck. And the number of hours that they spend in planning without a clear picture in their mind of why do we need this? Why are we doing that? That costs money. Like if you multiply by how much each of those members make an hour and the number of hours that they spend in all of that planning and strategizing with absolutely no guarantee that we're actually going to get work done after that with some great results, well, that costs a lot.
Yeah.
And speaking of getting work done, in the purpose of our topic is why great managers focus on outcomes and not outputs, let's just level the playing field here, making sure everyone has a shared understanding. What's the difference between outcomes and outputs?
Outcomes are outputs that you deliver on time. No, that's a joke. I'm kidding.
I'm sorry. We're like, huh?
I think so many people would love for it to be that simple, that an outcome is just an output delivered on time. No, it's so much more than that. We know it's so much more than that. This has been such an awesome and relevant conversation for so long. I mean, when I say so long, frankly, I do mean a blip, really, like 3 or 4 years. I think that this real topic has become a theme, and it's just gotten, I think, richer and richer over time. The difference, it's how we think about what it is we do primarily. I mean, in my mind, and we can get into examples and stuff like that, but I'd like to just, go with, it's how we think about how we work.
Now, I created this visual about change, but we can use it as a reference between the outputs and outcomes, that what drives what, right? And so when we think about what drives the actual change, how we're measuring it, and then the things that you're doing, this kind of helps people conceptualize. One is tasks and activities, and the other is the change in objective terms. That's right. Which eventually will give you the results of the change, which is your impact. So this is one way, to visualize what really drives what when we're talking about. So if you're in this very granular aspect of it and getting in that specificity, we know that when it comes to people and autonomy and the intrinsic motivation, you're leaving the creativity off the table because you're not allowing them to kind of think of their own ways to solve the problems, right? And there are some people out there that enjoy doing that. I would say I'm probably one of them, being someone that has a high inclination as a game changer, right? We're all about our own ideas and being able to do that. So I thought it would be interesting probably to ask some of you, what are the questions, like, what makes you feel engaged at work as we've been talking about this subject? And, if you had an opportunity to focus more on outcomes versus just the things and being told, hey, do this or that, would that motivate you more? I'm curious.
Yeah, those are fun topics to think about.
Yeah. And what about this one? So we talk about leaders and why they actually should, but what are some of the challenges that they run into? And so, Roxana, you've had some conversations with some of the emerging and millennial leaders that you coach and work with, that, again, they wanted to, but they couldn't.
They wanted to, but they couldn't because they're in the middle, and they're right there in between all of those top-down decisions, and also which they might agree or not agree with, but nobody's asking them. Nobody's asking them to contribute. Nobody's asking them, how's your team doing? What are your team challenges? Talk about our questions here, right? These are great questions to ask in an organization and in a team. And when you talk to your managers, right? Because you want to get data from the inside. What I find is people look at getting data from outside of their organization right now. And we need the data from the inside, because that's what's going to feed you your engagement and motivation level. And that's because that's what's going to get your people included in the conversation. And if they're included, they will feel intrinsically motivated. Compensation is going to be extrinsic motivation, and that's going to last for 1, 2, 3, maybe 6 months. But having them included in the conversation over and over again, that raises the levels of engagement and motivation, because you're asking them, and you might bump into issues that you never knew existed, so you couldn't fix them. And because you're asking them and you're getting that data, now you're going to find out what those issues really are, and some of them are valid. And this is what gives those headaches for these mid managers who need to fight for their teams, but they need to adopt some measures that come from the top down and that maybe are not the best ones.
I really I empathize a ton with leaders in organizations Particularly leaders that have been with organizations for a really long time, where the norms of the organization are just so established for certain leaders, it becomes really, really difficult to break some patterns of thinking. But the biggest challenge they run into, I see, is when we just are focusing on the things we do as being the outcome. Like you'll have a strategy like we got to move to the cloud. Well, moving to the cloud is still part of something bigger. You know what I mean? It's still part of something bigger. So getting to the cloud isn't really the thing, right? Just as an example. And leaders can't, it's hard to go beyond that. It just frankly is hard to go beyond the initiative level thinking. But you're busy in these organizations. It's busy, and they really want to establish focus. Focus is a big deal when you're in the midst of a very busy, work environment. And so, they would try to use things like, these different approaches to goal setting and things like that, to focus on those outputs. And so we really, in an attempt to try to become more outcome focused, we actually harden our focus on the outputs by creating, by putting them in our goals and things like that. And it just doesn't draw the separation, because it still ultimately creates this sense that the work is more important than the people. And when the work is more important than the people, our trajectory overall as an organization is off track, right?
Yeah.
Our trajectory is off track. So fixing that it will take the whole organization to kind of reorient and re-steer. Like when we're talking about, I don't care how massively big our organization is, if we talk about projects in terms of hundreds that we do annually, for example, we have to accept that we're putting, there's the noise in the system is just too rich to know what it is, what really bubbles to the top. If we have to sustain in the hundreds of conversation, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Because it can't translate to hundreds of things. It just can't. It's just not the way we communicate it. We're really trying to accomplish a handful of things. So the question becomes, how do we best express that handful of things so that we can even give ourselves a chance of providing a level of focus to create an environment where autonomy, mastery, and purpose can become a thing.
Yeah. And I would say, I'm going to put myself in this bucket, right? Because I was one of them, where we have coaches, consultants, people out there that organizations are going to for help, that not everyone is helping them make that shift. So they are leaning on them to be taught, mentored, and coached. And those that are actually have an ability to help with that shift are not there either.
Yeah.
And so I just want to put that out as a reality, is that there are still people that when we get all the way down to a team level and we think about Agile and Scrum and these types of frameworks, or even product, right? They are not teaching what it actually can be and helping them understand, here's where you are, here's what we're going to do right now. You might be limited, but this is what it can look like. They never show the future tense of what that can be. And so they have that, what I would say, unawareness of what they can grow into. And they leave it right there as settling in an output way. And it troubles me because I see this all the time, that we're not doing our part coming into organizations and helping them. Now, I'm not saying everyone, right? But I'm challenging everyone that's not doing that. There's a difference between I'm not ready, I don't have the desire, but you still have to bring it up. You have to go through the process of getting them to see that. It's our job.
I agree with you 100%. I do, but there's really there's a lot going on in what you described there, in terms of, there's a due diligence element that I believe consultants need to bring to the table in terms of what's possible. But many times the person that they consider kind of their primary stakeholder has very immediate things that they're trying to get like done, and they're like, yeah, I get it, but type of situation, like, this is what I need my teams trained in Agile, for example. So so you're often put in a catch-22 where you know that the thing that you're trying to do for the organization isn't going to be the thing that drives their ultimate business outcomes. That's the difference, right? You, like,
right.
If ultimately
Definitely.
stripping away all the language and you know, just getting down to kind of the core thing, if we want to see our organization's performance improve and our growth rates increase, then we have to understand that kind of business goals does not come from training Scrum teams how to do Scrum, right? It's just, it's not. However, getting to your point, you know, there's no harm in every time you're talking to leaders in an organization from presenting that idea that we have to have a holistic view, and that our organization is a system, and that system cannot be optimized by trying to optimize a component. If you can get that far into the conversation, I feel at least you've opened the door and invited the opportunity to explain that more deeply. Yeah, I agree with you. Yes,
it's taking the opportunities when they're there, but you're meeting people where they are.
Yeah,
and so it's always keeping your eye on the prize. I mean, that's our job, is to look 10 steps ahead, right? What are our next moves? And so it's challenging. It's not saying, hey, you can flip the switch, because when we're talking about people, and we know now, I'm a game changer. So that possibility in challenging the status quo is natural for me. But what I've learned is, and we know we can measure the energies of what the leadership or the people that are actually managing these changes in these organizations, some of them may not even have this energy, this proclivity that really wants to drive change and do something different. And so you're talking to a group of people that no one is championing that internally.
Yeah, but at the same time,
I'm the only game changer there.
So, and that's a great point, because you will have different people who will value different things. And one of the things that you're taught when you get into any kind of adult learning training, so that you can train adults, they teach you that adults want to contribute. So that's because they come with their own experiences and their own knowledge, and they want to share that. This is why you find a lot of people who want to just help, because they do want that. But how do you create that environment where they actually can contribute? Because that's the thing. Everybody can make a contribution. And we forget something that's absolutely crucial, especially right now, that we are talking about transition. And in transition, you cannot make decisions the same way that you make them when you are operating normal business, because it's different. It's absolutely different. And the levels of emotional charge, they're higher. People are, in some cases, they're exhausted. They might not be thinking straight. You have to consider all of that. We're transitioning no matter what. You cannot, and what I hear a lot of is people referring to, we're getting back to normal. There's no getting back. We have to understand that.
What is normal? Because
and it's not normal
if I was
anymore.
In the 1500s, if I was talking to somebody back in the 1500s, would my description of normal be the same as their normal? Things change. Study
but
history.
Even now, at a table, you put people at a round table in a boardroom or in a virtual room, they will define normal differently, because they're going to have different priorities. Yeah, absolutely.
So, moving on, because we have to share these 4 tips. So this was my seating, nudge, nudge. And our timing is, let's talk about that. So these 4 tips of shifting to outcome leadership. So we have lead with transparency and purpose, start setting goals, choose quantitative metrics to track, and review progress regularly. So what say the 2 of you?
Where do you want to start? Tip 1?
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, You know, the transparency element of things, it's so often that there's just so much that opportunity here, but the sense of just relaying a message, like if the manager just feels that they are a pass through of like what we're talking about, these top down decision making, and don't shoot the messenger, we just have to do it, because there needs to be a different conversation starting to happen somewhere, so that transparency can mean something. What does it mean? It means we're getting to the why, right? We're getting beyond the busyness of just do it and shift gears and do one more thing. So transparency is beyond, I mean, that's one angle, right? That's one angle. Transparency is also there's a participatory and a co-creation element to transparency, which is let's make decisions together by understanding the problem together. Those are simple things that we can start to do as leaders that start to drive that collaborative focus, which is really what we're after in some context of some of these things, is creating a more of an energized team-based collaborative focus. So that, transparency isn't so that our one-on-ones feel like they take on a deeper and richer meaning. It's that our interaction and daily interaction as a team has a new meaning, and it drives to that purpose. So it's tactical things that we can start to do, solve problems together. But the main thing that in any kind of change is we build on these tips for managers that are going through any kind of transition, or even those that would consider themselves in leadership positions, is to start to build that environment where we're solving problems together, because it's through the lens of those problems and those challenges that we face where we come together to solve, to start to drive toward purpose.
And I want to call out a key word that you mentioned, and that's teaming. So a lot of times when we say the word team, we naturally go to the boots on the ground, the people that are actually executors. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're meaning here. We're saying teaming happens at every level, and especially it's vital the higher you go.
I think it's more critical.
Yeah.
It's more critical to understand
that's where goals are going to be important, because if you don't have a common goal as a team, you're not a team, really. You're just a group of people who happen to work together. I agree. That's the keyword. And the keyword here is together, because that also gives the accountability for each of your team members. Because another thing that I'm saying is, like, yes, you are the leader, but that only means that you also have the ability to empower others on the team to take the lead when they need to. That doesn't mean that you're supposed to have all of the answers all of the time, because that's not going to be possible, and that's not a reasonable expectation. And your metrics will definitely tell you that.
Yeah.
And there's a direct correlation, just to kind of, when it comes to strategic execution, leaders, and everyone getting together, it makes it easier if you are teaming with your peers. And then when the people that are directly reporting to you, there's this synergy that's naturally happening. It's quite symbiotic. So when you think about transparency, purpose, setting these goals, creating these quantitative metrics, and reviewing progress regularly, imagine if you're doing it at a higher level. And so you're able to converge together. It's one company, right? And we know that's a challenge, because when you get down to the very micro level of a team and you have conflicts of interest, and most of the time that organizations that are going through evolution of agility are trying to work with other parties. It's not just within their space, because they start to realize all those dependencies and all those groups that they have to work with. What ends up starting, where it rubs, and you've seen it, Larry, is that they have different agendas that they have. And it's not because they always want to, it's just because the system is created and it supports that.
Yeah, we're starting to creep into the second topic a little bit here, because they do relate, right? They do relate. Our goals around transparency and purpose a lot of times are seated in the way in which we think about ourselves as groups of people and how we organize to achieve things. How we, so the structure of team and the focus of goals are interrelated. There's interrelationship there. two super common anti-patterns that I see in this space specifically at both a senior leadership level as well as more that where that middle management level meets the teams that are on the ground doing work. The two primary ones I see, starting with the senior leadership breakdown, and it's so unfortunate because it's literally like in the moment. A lot of times when leaders have come together, they a lot of times they'll do their offsite, day-long leadership offsite, 2-day offsite type thing. They'll come together and they don't know it in the moment, but they are fundamentally wrong. And here, let me explain. What I mean by that is they'll set goals as a team and they'll set all individual goals. They'll set all individual goals.
It's, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
So now you have a leadership team of 8 to 10 people that all have established their own leadership goals. And the purpose of the meeting that they come together on is to establish those goals and communicate those goals. Where's the breakdown in that? The breakdown is that they need to have a fundamental 2, 3, 4 goals that they set as a team. The goal coming out of a leadership offsite needs to come away with what are the 3 things we're chasing next year, the 3 goals, and get crisp on how we're going to measure those goals. And then think about everybody's contribution to those goals. That's where outcomes meet outputs. There's things we do now to meet those goals. And that's where the conversation can get more down at the tactical individual, team level in terms of higher level contribution. But we can't come together as a leadership team and set individual goals. We're fundamentally off track right there. That's where the thinking has to change. That is where the thinking has to change. Great book, great resources on that. Just share one resource available to people. There's a book called The Advantage by Peter Lencioni. That speaks to this horizontal view of teams versus vertical view of teams, and it's worth a read. I can share another example of where another breakdown like that happens, but if you want to interject on what I said, please do.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, let me just say the other example. The other example that you see of that happens at a more tactical level, particularly when you have a manager that has a group of people that have diverse skill sets, is we'll set these team goals and then we'll assign them to individuals on the team. It's another fundamental breakdown where we're now missing the opportunity to keep and sustain that team-based thinking relative to our goals, because now we've assigned them out. And then our getting to your last thing, our check progress regularly becomes individuals giving updates, but there's no collective understanding, nor is there really in that environment. We haven't even created an environment where there's a desire on the team to have a collective understanding, because now they've been individually assigned one of a segment of goals, and they have to now chase that down. And the conversations usually go around the difficulties that they're having.
Oh, now I know what I was going to say. I'm a big believer of not needing perfect to get started.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you are a middle management and you're a team leader and you're saying, I love this, but it's not there up at that highest level. How can I get started? Well, all of these bullet points, there's nothing that stops you to start shifting that with your teams directly, which the more team leaders at a lower level start doing this, there's this organic thing that happens, right? That osmosis, people start noticing what's going on over there. Because I bet you those teams are probably more high performing, more engaged and motivated. And if you probably did your NPS scores, right, they're probably a lot different compared to what's happening in the rest of the organization. So there's a way to influence by being the change and just start doing it. And I had to point that out.
I think it's important. I mean, it's always worth, and the wonderful thing is, in larger organizations, which is common for me, is you always have those folks like that. There always is somebody who's trying to push the envelope somewhere,
trendsetter.
They are your change agents. They are the game changers in the organization. If you can find them and get organic change, meaningful organic change to happen, good. It's a long, windy route, right? It's the long, windy, scenic route when you go the organic change route.
Yeah.
Top down certainly invites top down, done in an eloquent, vision driven, purpose driven way is I think more effective to bring that timeline of change in. And but the more important thing that you said, and I just want to say this real quick, is getting started with change, right? We have to start somewhere. A lot of times the target destination is the things we see that need to get done to get there. Actually, this is a really super interesting, there's a concept behind this. I can share it with you briefly, that has to do with, our understanding of our current conditions relative to where we want to get to. And it's called creative tension. If you get a book, it'll come to me as I'm talking to you. I'll give you the name of the book and the author. The author is Peter Senge, but I'll get the name of the book. But anyway, he talks about this idea of us having a vision, some target state that we want to get to relative to where we are. The gap between those creates creative tension for organizations. It creates creative tension, but it's a positive creative tension. What happens, though, and what we're faced with is what we want to be able to do is pull our current conditions. So the way he uses it, the analogy he uses is if you had a rubber band and you stretched it with your two hands, your bottom hand would represent current conditions. Your top hand represents our target condition, or where we're trying to get to, our vision. And you pull that, right? And the tension there, what happens as people, how we react is we have to bring one or the other closer to ease that tension. So as leaders, the goal is to maintain the vision and bring the conditions of the organization incrementally closer to the vision to ease that tension, versus changing our vision and bringing our vision down closer to our current conditions. When we talk about hybrid anything as it relates to change, what we're saying is we've brought our target closer to our current conditions because we simply can't get there to ease the tension. The tension is too much. And the ease immediately is going to be to bring the vision closer to our current reality, which is unfortunately really what we're saying is we want to stay in our comfort zone to the degree that we can, because that's too much. That's too much change. How do you get there, though? So this is just reinforcing your point, Veronica, of you have to start somewhere, because it's like I always tell leaders when I get there, I'm like, look at our target state destination is going to be 1,000 little steps and probably 3 or 4 giant leaps. So we have to be able to take 1,000 little steps on a true journey. And that's what it takes. And so MVP, everything that you do regarding change, come up with an MVP, because what are you going to do over the next quarter? That's all we want. We don't look further than that.
And this is, where we talk about fear and cultures and that uncertainty. And I know I alluded to this game changer energy and why it's so vital to find those people with these energies, because they will naturally take those risks, and they can be calculated risks when I say that, and they will stretch you. They are willing to see the opportunities of what other people are not, and they want it and take a chance. And that's where experimentation comes from. And so we have to be comfortable to experiment, and we have to be comfortable that some experiments might fall flat.
And allow that environment to actually be there, because and I love that analogy of the rubber band and keeping it up here for the vision. Just imagine what that would do if you actually allowed other people on the team to hold that band when you can't hold it anymore. Because if you're the one person who's constantly keeping it, like at some point you're going to get stiff, and this is going to become painful, and it's going to be very difficult for you to keep that vision at that level. Absolutely. So imagine what it would mean if you bring all of these people who can contribute and keep that level of the vision, so that you can all work together to minimize that tension and bring it from the bottom up.
One of the hardest parts to that whole thing, and it is the right conversation. And by the way, the name of that book is called The Fifth Discipline.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I'll tell you this: it's a book from the 90s. It predates Agile. Agile, the word is probably not in the book. It's by far and away the most Agile book I've ever read. Just it's worth sharing. So, but I wanted to build a bit on what Veronica was saying because, well, actually, let me ask Veronica, do you want to?
I know that we're going to have to start wrapping up. So let's get your final thought here.
Well, what a fun conversation. I will tell you on just to bring things back full circle on closing what Roxana was building on there. The honest look at the current conditions, current reality is where the conversation we need to have. If we're not aligned on the current conditions in current reality, if we're telling each other different stories about where we really are, then it becomes harder to keep the vision aspect of things because we're really not aligned on the where we are right now.
Yeah,
that's got to be the hard
conversation. This is where the power of teaming, because it no one is alone in this effort.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge. Now, next week, I wanted to share with everyone what next week's topic is. And we have a special guest from talent acquisition that's going to talk and share with us about how to make the great attrition shift to great attraction. So that's going to be some great things.
Yeah.
Now, also, I do have, I don't know if this is the right share on but our GCW followers, just to remind you, we always have, because we love you, that you have your special GCW special offer. It's for any of the Scaled OKR certified coach course. You actually have one, I think.
There's two out right now. I put a weekend course out there, but it's like literally not this weekend, but next weekend. So it's right around the corner. And then I have so that's I think this is the 6th or the 7th or something like that. And then we have another one in December. And so, yeah, we'll have those links available too for both of those.
So those of you are always wanting to take advantage of the GCW special We Love You offers, this is the one that we have for today. Now, don't forget our whole entire library, and we go back a year now of all the episodes that we have on the Game Changing Work YouTube channel, so you can find everything on there. Those of you that might be watching on the other platforms, you can go there and find that easily. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you find this enlightening and engaging, and please share your comments and thoughts, even if you're watching the replay today. So see you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.